The German Tiger I tank, one of the most feared weapons of World War II, captured the imagination of both the Allied and Axis forces during the war. Its imposing presence on the battlefield, coupled with its advanced design and powerful armament, made it a symbol of the strength of Nazi Germany's military might. But despite its fearsome reputation, the Tiger I had its vulnerabilities. This vulnerability became painfully clear to American tank crews, who, after engaging the Tiger I on numerous occasions, had the rare opportunity to capture one of these legendary machines. Little did they know that the very tank they were so terrified of had a fatal flaw, one that would leave them stunned and perplexed. The Tiger I's limited operational range at only 120 miles per tank. The introduction of the Tiger I was a direct response by Germany to the success of Soviet tanks, particularly the T-34, and the growing pressure from Allied tank forces. German engineers sought to develop a tank that would dominate the battlefield with superior armor and firepower. By the time the Tiger I first appeared in the summer of 1942, it was clear that the tank's capabilities were beyond anything the Allies had encountered before. It was equipped with a powerful 88 millimeter gun, renowned for its ability to knock out enemy armor at long ranges. This gun made the Tiger I a fearsome adversary for any tank it came up against, including the formidable Soviet T-34 and the American M4 Sherman. The Tiger I's armor was a key factor in its design. The tank featured 100 millimeter thick frontal armor, which was nearly impervious to most Allied anti-tank weapons. Combined with the sloped design of its armor, the Tiger could absorb hits from almost any angle, making it nearly invulnerable to anything that the Allies could throw at it, especially in the early stages of the war. This made the Tiger a terrifying prospect for American and British tank crews, who found themselves outgunned and outclassed when facing one of these armored giants on the battlefield. However, as impressive as the Tiger I's offensive and defensive capabilities were, the tank had significant drawbacks that were not immediately apparent. The Tiger was a heavy beast, weighing nearly 56 tons. This made it sluggish compared to the more mobile American and British tanks, particularly the M4 Sherman, which was designed with speed and maneuverability in mind. The Tiger I's weight also posed challenges in terms of logistics and fuel consumption. The engine, while powerful, struggled to cope with the weight, resulting in a top speed of only around 24 miles per hour, far slower than the more nimble Shermans. Even worse, the Tiger I's fuel efficiency was abysmal. The tank's 12-cylinder Maybach engine consumed fuel at a staggering rate, leaving the Tiger I with a limited operational range of just 120 miles before it had to be refueled. For a tank of such immense firepower and armor, this was a severe disadvantage. The Tiger I's fuel consumption became one of its most significant weaknesses, especially in long campaigns where fuel was in short supply. This would ultimately limit its effectiveness, as it could not sustain prolonged combat without constant logistical support. The logistical challenges of maintaining the Tiger I were well known to the German army, but they were not fully appreciated by the Allied forces until they began to capture these tanks on the battlefield. American tankers, in particular, were often shocked by the sheer size and power of the Tiger I when they first encountered it. However, they quickly learned that while the Tiger was indeed a formidable opponent, it was also a logistical nightmare for its operators. American tankers would soon find themselves in an unusual position. After intense combat, they managed to capture a Tiger I tank intact, giving them a rare opportunity to inspect it up close. This was a valuable moment for the Allies, as understanding the enemy's most advanced technology could provide critical insight into their strengths and weaknesses. When the American tankers first looked inside the captured Tiger I, they were astounded by its design. The 88 millimeter gun was impressive, but so were the thick, sloped armor plates that had made the Tiger so feared. The crew compartments were well thought out, providing the German crew with effective protection and efficient use of space. However, what really struck the Americans was the realization that the Tiger's performance was far from perfect. The tank's limited range, combined with its heavy fuel consumption, would become a major factor in its operational limitations. In battle, the Tiger I had to be extremely cautious with its movements, as running low on fuel could leave the tank stranded in the middle of a combat zone, easy prey for more mobile enemy forces. This vulnerability would become a key point of discussion for American tankers, who would use the captured Tiger One as both a learning tool and a symbol of the potential advantages they could exploit. The capture of the Tiger One also allowed American engineers and tank crews to assess the tank's mechanical components, providing crucial information that would influence tank development for years to come. They learned that while the Tiger's gun and armor were impressive, the tank's overall design was far from perfect. The heavy weight of the Tiger One put considerable strain on its suspension system, making it prone to breakdowns under sustained combat conditions. Additionally, the tank's complex systems were difficult to repair in the field, requiring specialized parts and maintenance teams. This, combined with the tank's fuel inefficiency, made it clear that the Tiger One, for all its strength, had severe limitations that would ultimately hinder its effectiveness on the battlefield. American tank crews, after gaining first-hand experience with the captured Tiger One, found that its fearsome reputation often outweighed its actual combat capabilities. While the Tiger Eye could inflict heavy damage when it was operating at full potential, its logistical weaknesses meant that it could not maintain that dominance over long periods. The capture of this tank served as a reminder to the Allies that in modern warfare, a balance of firepower, mobility, and logistical efficiency was essential for success. The Tiger the Ring, for all its terrifying firepower, was ultimately a machine that required constant support and care, and its limitations would prove to be a significant factor in its eventual downfall. The capture of a Tiger I tank by American forces marked a pivotal moment in the war for several reasons. Not only did it provide the Allies with a powerful tool to study German engineering, but it also offered American tankers a rare, first-hand opportunity to experience and understand the fears and misconceptions they had long held about the dreaded German behemoth. This section delves into the experience of American tankers, their initial encounters with the Tiger One, and the surprise they felt when they discovered the tank's operational limitations, particularly its surprisingly short range of only 120 miles per tank. In the midst of the intense tank battles that raged across Europe, American tank crews had developed a deep respect for the German Tiger One, particularly its armor and firepower. Early in the war, the Tiger had earned a reputation as an unstoppable force. As reports from the front lines trickled back to the United States, the Tiger One was presented as a nearly invincible monster that could annihilate any Allied tank in a single shot. American tankers, particularly those operating the M4 Sherman, were often pitted against Tigers in pitched battles, where the odds were heavily stacked against them. The Tiger's 88mm gun was capable of punching through the Sherman's armor with ease, while the Sherman's own 75mm gun struggled to penetrate the Tiger's thick front plate. The perception among American tankers was clear. If they came face to face with the Tiger, their chances of survival were slim. Despite their fears, American tankers had one crucial advantage that they would later come to realize. Their tank was more maneuverable, faster, and better suited for the conditions of warfare they were fighting in. While the Sherman might not have matched the Tiger in terms of raw firepower or armor, it made up for those deficiencies with speed and tactical flexibility. The key to defeating the Tiger, American tankers soon discovered, wasn't in a direct engagement of strength, but in using speed, ambush tactics, and outflanking maneuvers. The problem was, of course, that these tactics were only viable if the American tankers could get close enough to exploit the Tiger's vulnerabilities. And most importantly, this wasn't always the case when the Tiger had the initiative. It wasn't until American forces began to capture Tiger I tanks on the battlefield that their understanding of the tank's weaknesses began to evolve. In one notable case, American forces took possession of a fully intact Tiger I during a battle in Normandy. The capture was nothing short of a miracle, an opportunity that many tankers could only dream of. The excitement among the American crew members was palpable. What better way to study the enemy's technology than by capturing it? But as they approached the captured machine, their initial thoughts were far from practical. The tank was an imposing sight, towering over the surrounding terrain with its powerful 88mm gun trained forward. Its sheer size was enough to intimidate anyone who had ever seen one in action, and the awe it commanded on the battlefield was undeniable. The tankers were immediately struck by the weight and scale of the Tiger One. At nearly 56 tons, the Tiger was far heavier than any tank the Americans had worked with. It had a low, squat profile, its turret housed behind thick armor plating that seemed impenetrable. The tracks, wide and reinforced, gave it an almost menacing presence. Inside, the crew had access to a well-organized turret, which offered a clear view of the battlefield. The crew compartments were designed for maximum protection, with thick steel armor protecting the vital areas. But despite all its advanced design, what the American tankers would soon find most surprising was that the Tiger's performance was far less impressive than they had initially assumed. Upon closer inspection, the first surprise came from the Tiger's fuel system. The tank was fitted with a massive fuel tank, but it was clear that this didn't translate into an endless range. The Tiger I could only travel about 120 miles on a full tank of fuel, a dismal range considering the demands of modern warfare. In comparison, the M4 Sherman had a range of around 120 miles as well, but it was lighter, more mobile, and required less logistical support. The Tiger I's fuel consumption was so high that it was often unable to make it from one frontline position to another without requiring refueling. This was a glaring weakness in an otherwise powerful machine. The American tankers couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief when they realized that a tank they had feared so much could be rendered nearly useless simply by running out of fuel. Moreover, American tankers found that the Tiger's weight, although beneficial in terms of protection, created serious mobility issues. While the Tiger was capable of crossing rough terrain with its wide tracks, the sheer mass of the tank made it sluggish and prone to mechanical breakdowns. It wasn't unusual for Tigers to become immobilized by mechanical failures, particularly when they were used aggressively in combat. The tank's mechanical systems, while sophisticated for their time, were prone to strain under the pressure of constant combat, requiring frequent maintenance. For a machine that was supposed to dominate the battlefield, it was remarkably fragile in the face of the logistical demands of war. The Sherman tank, in contrast, was designed to be a workhorse. It could move quickly, traverse long distances, and engage in sustained combat without being bogged down by mechanical failures or fuel shortages. While it was not as heavily armored or as heavily armed as the Tiger, the Sherman was far more dependable in terms of mobility and endurance. It was also easier to repair and maintain, which gave it a significant advantage in prolonged engagements where supply lines were often stretched thin. The American tankers who examined the Tiger I were astounded by how much less impressive the tank became once they got past its imposing exterior. What had once been perceived as an indestructible beast was now seen as a vulnerable machine, vulnerable to the very things that the Americans had long relied on: speed, flexibility, and the ability to outlast the enemy. In the end, the capture of the Tiger I was more than just a moment of military triumph for the American forces. It was a lesson in how overestimating an enemy's strength could cloud judgment and prevent one from fully appreciating the complexities of warfare. The Tiger Therma's range limitations were a powerful reminder that no matter how advanced a machine might be, it is only as effective as the systems that support it. For the American tankers, this lesson would stay with them throughout the war, as they continued to refine their tactics and adapt to the ever-changing nature of armored warfare. The Tiger I tank was, without a doubt, a formidable weapon of war. Its 88mm gun and thick, sloped armor made it a fearsome opponent on the battlefield. When the Allies first encountered the Tiger I, they were struck by its ability to destroy enemy tanks with relative ease, and its fearsome reputation quickly spread across the front lines. But as American tankers and engineers began to study the Tiger I more closely, it became clear that despite its raw power, the tank had several limitations that would eventually hinder its effectiveness on the battlefield. The most significant of these weaknesses, which would play a crucial role in its downfall, was its operational range, only about 120 miles per tank, and the logistical nightmares that came with maintaining such a beast in combat. The Tiger I was designed to dominate the battlefield with its powerful armament and nearly impenetrable armor. At the time of its introduction, it was far superior to any other tank the Allies had in terms of sheer firepower. The 88mm KWK 36L/56 gun could destroy almost any tank in a single shot, even at long range. The gun was capable of penetrating the thick armor of the Soviet T-34, the British Churchill, and the American M4 Sherman with ease. The German tank was also equipped with heavy armor, with the front plate measuring 100 millimeters thick, sloped at a 30-degree angle. This made the Tiger jury nearly invulnerable to many of the anti-tank weapons in use by the Allies at the time. However, the tank's immense firepower and protection came at a cost: its size and weight. The Tiger I weighed in at about 56 tons, which made it far heavier than most of the tanks that the Allies were using. This heavy weight meant that the Tiger I was not as mobile as the more nimble tanks in the Allied arsenal. The American M4 Sherman, for example, weighed around 30 tons and could move much more quickly and maneuver in tight spaces, whereas the Tiger's massive size limited its ability to keep pace with the more mobile Allied forces. The Tiger's sluggishness made it a prime target for Allied tankers who could use speed and maneuverability to their advantage. The limitations of the Tiger I became even more apparent when its fuel efficiency was considered. Despite its advanced design and potent firepower, the Tiger I had an abysmal fuel range, capable of traveling only 120 miles on a full tank. This was a significant disadvantage, especially in the context of large-scale mobile warfare. Unlike the M4 Sherman, which had a longer operational range and was capable of moving swiftly over vast distances, the Tiger I was often limited by its fuel consumption. This created a major logistical problem for German forces, especially as the war dragged on and the Allies gained air superiority, disrupting German supply lines. The Tiger I's fuel consumption was so high that it was not uncommon for these tanks to run out of fuel before they could complete their mission. In battle, this would leave the tanks stranded in the middle of the action, vulnerable to attack by more mobile Allied units. The German supply system, stretched thin by Allied air raids, and the advancing Soviet forces often struggled to keep up with the demands of maintaining these massive tanks. Even when the fuel was available, the logistical infrastructure required to keep the Tiger I running was daunting. Specialized parts were needed for repairs, and the tank's complex mechanical systems often broke down under the stress of combat. The tank's suspension system, in particular, was a weak point. The Tiger I's heavy weight put significant strain on the suspension, which would often lead to breakdowns in the field. While the German army had the resources to maintain and repair Tiger I tanks early in the war, as the conflict wore on, these resources became increasingly scarce. The fuel shortages, combined with the mechanical failures, meant that the Tiger's combat effectiveness began to suffer. The Germans had to make a difficult decision: continue to deploy the Tiger I, knowing that it would require a significant amount of logistical support, or shift to lighter, more mobile tanks that were less effective in battle but more reliable over the long haul. The strategic situation was changing as well. By 1944, the Allies had improved their tank designs and developed better tactics to combat the Tiger. The American Sherman, while not as powerful or heavily armored as the Tiger, had the advantage of being more versatile and easier to mass produce. Allied tankers learned to use superior numbers and mobility to their advantage, often attacking the Tiger I from the sides or rear, where its armor was weaker. The Sherman's 75mm gun, although not as powerful as the Tiger's 88mm, was more than capable of disabling a Tiger if it could find a vulnerable spot. Another factor that contributed to the diminishing effectiveness of the Tiger I was the growing reliance on air support. As the Allies gained air superiority, they were able to launch devastating airstrikes against the German tanks. The Tiger I's thick armor was resistant to most small arms fire, but it was vulnerable to aerial attacks, especially from planes equipped with bombs or rockets. The Allied air forces targeted the Tiger's weak spots, such as its engine and transmission, which were critical to its ability to stay operational. The vulnerability of the Tiger to airstrikes was a constant concern for German commanders, and it became clear that air superiority was key to neutralizing the Tiger's threat. The Tiger I also had significant operational limitations in terms of crew training and maintenance. The tank's complex systems required a high level of expertise to operate and repair. A single breakdown could put the tank out of commission for days, which was a serious problem in the midst of intense combat. The crew of a Tiger I had to be highly trained, not only in driving and firing the tank, but also in maintaining and repairing it under battlefield conditions. This required a level of technical knowledge that many other tanks did not demand. While the Sherman was simpler to operate and maintain, the Tiger I required skilled mechanics and engineers to keep it running. The final blow to the Tiger I came with the declining resources of Nazi Germany as the war continued. The German war effort, once at its peak, began to falter as the Allies closed in from all sides. Fuel shortages, material scarcities, and the lack of experienced crews made it difficult for the German army to maintain its fleet of Tiger I tanks. As a result, the Tiger II's presence on the battlefield began to decrease. Although it was still a formidable opponent, its limitations in terms of mobility, fuel consumption, and logistical support meant that it could no longer sustain its dominance over the battlefield. By the time the Allies reached Germany in 1945, the Tiger I had become a symbol of both the power and the vulnerability of Nazi Germany's military. While the tank had been a formidable opponent at the start of the war, its operational shortcomings had been exposed, and its role on the battlefield had diminished. The Tiger II's legacy would live on, not just as a fearsome weapon, but as a lesson in the importance of balance in military technology. Firepower, armor, mobility, and logistics all had to work together for a tank to be truly effective in modern warfare. The capture of a Tiger I tank by American forces, along with the subsequent analysis of its design and performance, offered valuable lessons that would shape both military tactics and tank development in the years that followed. Though the Tiger I was initially seen as an unstoppable juggernaut on the battlefield, its weaknesses, particularly its fuel inefficiency, mechanical reliability, and logistical demands, ultimately led to its decline. The legacy of the Tiger I, however, extends far beyond its time on the battlefield, providing a profound lesson in the balance between firepower, mobility, and logistical support. A lesson that tank development and warfare strategies would carry forward into the post-war years. From the outset, the Tiger I was a technological marvel that struck fear into the hearts of Allied soldiers. Its powerful 88mm gun, combined with its thick, sloped armor, made it a nearly indestructible opponent in the early stages of the war. The tank's ability to destroy enemy armor at long distances and its seeming invulnerability to most Allied anti-tank weapons made it a symbol of German military superiority. For many tank crews, encountering a Tiger I on the battlefield was a terrifying experience. The stories of Shermans being obliterated by a single shot from a Tiger were numerous, and the psychological impact of facing this formidable tank cannot be overstated. The Tiger II's ability to dominate the battlefield initially gave the German forces a significant advantage, but this success was short-lived. As the war progressed and the Allies gained experience in combating the Tiger, it became apparent that the tank's perceived invincibility was more myth than reality. American tankers, in particular, began to realize that the Tiger II's true weaknesses lay not in its firepower or armor, but in its logistical demands and limited operational range. The tank's fuel efficiency was dismal, with a maximum range of only 120 miles on a full tank. For a tank of its size and firepower, this was a major limitation, especially in the context of mobile warfare, where tanks needed to be able to move quickly and cover long distances. Allied tankers, utilizing the mobility of their Shermans, could often outmaneuver the slower Tiger I and strike at its vulnerable sides and rear. But the limitations of the Tiger I were not just in its range or fuel consumption. The tank's mechanical complexity and reliance on a vast logistical network for maintenance also became major liabilities. The Tiger I was heavy, far heavier than the M4 Sherman or other Allied tanks, at 56 tons, which placed a tremendous strain on its suspension system and required constant maintenance. Mechanical breakdowns were common, and the Tiger I's advanced systems made it difficult to repair in the field. Even with the best crews and parts, a Tiger could be immobilized by something as simple as a damaged track or a worn-out engine, and it was not uncommon for these mechanical failures to leave the tank stranded behind enemy lines. The German logistical system, which was already stretched thin by the demands of the war, could not always keep up with the needs of such a complex and maintenance-heavy vehicle. The reliance on specialized parts and trained personnel to repair and maintain the Tiger I made it a logistical nightmare, especially as the war dragged on and the German supply lines were cut off by advancing Allied forces. The capture of a fully operational Tiger I tank by American forces provided crucial insight into these vulnerabilities. Engineers and tank crews from the United States were able to study the tank in detail, uncovering its weaknesses and using this knowledge to improve their own armored forces. American tankers in particular learned that although the Tiger I was a formidable opponent, its power was not invincible. The American strategy of using speed and maneuverability to outflank and disable the Tiger proved to be effective, and the experience gained from these encounters informed the tactics that would be used to counter the Tiger in future battles. One of the key lessons learned from the Tiger I was the importance of balancing firepower, armor, and mobility. The German tank was an exceptional example of firepower and protection, but it sacrificed mobility and fuel efficiency in the process. The American Sherman, although less powerful and less armored, was far more mobile and could cover greater distances. It was also easier to maintain and repair, which gave it a significant advantage in prolonged engagements. In modern tank warfare, this balance became crucial. While a tank like the Tiger I could deal immense damage, it was vulnerable to more nimble opponents who could exploit its weaknesses. The lesson for future tank design was clear. A tank that was too heavy, too complex, or too reliant on logistical support could quickly become a liability in combat. The legacy of the Tiger I also played a key role in shaping the development of future armored vehicles. After the war, both the United States and the Soviet Union took the lessons learned from their experiences with the Tiger and applied them to the design of their own tanks. The United States, for example, developed the M26 Pershing tank, which was an attempt to replicate the firepower and armor of the German Tiger while maintaining the mobility and logistical ease of the Sherman. The Soviets, too, took note of the weaknesses in the German heavy tanks and, in the years following the war, developed a series of highly mobile, well-armored tanks like the T-54 and T-55, which became the backbone of Soviet armored forces for decades. Another important legacy of the Tiger I was its influence on military doctrine. The lessons learned from facing the Tiger reinforced the idea that tank battles were not simply about firepower and armor, but also about logistics, mobility, and the ability to work as part of a larger combined arms strategy. The American and British armies, for example, increasingly adopted strategies that emphasized the use of tanks in coordination with infantry, artillery, and air support. The success of Allied forces against the Tiger, one highlighted the importance of flexibility in tactics and the need to adapt to changing battlefield conditions. The Allies were able to overcome the Tiger's fearsome reputation, not through brute force, but through superior tactics and the effective use of their own strengths. The Tiger I also left an indelible mark on the psychology of warfare. Its imposing design and devastating firepower made it a symbol of German military prowess, and its legacy has lived on in popular culture, where it is often portrayed as the ultimate war machine. However, the true lesson of the Tiger I is that no matter how advanced a piece of military hardware may be, it can always be overcome by adapting to its weaknesses and exploiting its vulnerabilities. In this respect, the Tiger I was not invincible. It was simply another piece of machinery that could be defeated with the right strategy and a clear understanding of its limitations. In the broader scope of World War II, the legacy of the Tiger I is one of both awe and caution. It remains one of the most iconic tanks ever built, and its role in the war is a testament to the importance of technological innovation in modern combat. However, the lessons it imparted on the importance of balance, mobility, and logistics have shaped the way tanks are designed and used in the decades since. The Tiger I serves as a powerful reminder that in the art of warfare, no matter how powerful a weapon may seem, it is the ability to adapt and outthink the enemy that ultimately determines success.